The massive crystal structure floating in the void of space pulsed with ancient power. Inside the Dominion Council chamber, 5 beings who called themselves gods gathered around a table made from compressed starlight. For over 10,000 years, they had ruled the galaxy without question or challenge. Every species that reached the stars eventually knelt before them or died trying to resist. Veltar Supreme Commander Morthak was the first to speak. His body was pure energy, contained in a shimmering golden form that hurt to look at directly. Another primitive species has achieved faster than light travel, he announced with the tone of someone discussing an annoying insect. The energy being gestured, and a holographic display showed a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. They call themselves humans, and their world Earth. The other council members barely looked interested. Kitharon Prime Nexus Zildok was a towering silicon creature whose body was part organic tissue and part advanced computer systems. Cables and wires ran through its translucent skin like veins. "How many ships do they possess?" it asked in a voice that sounded like digital static mixed with grinding metal. "Their fastest vessel barely reaches 1% of our slowest scout ship," Morthak replied with obvious amusement. "They have perhaps 50 ships total. Most are crude exploration vessels or cargo haulers. Their weapons appear to be primitive projectile systems and basic energy weapons." Nexari Overmind Ketherol floated in its containment sphere filled with psychic enhancement fluid. The pale, tentacled creature spoke directly into the minds of the others without moving its mouth. "I sense no unified consciousness among them. They are fractured into competing groups and nations, individually weak minds with no psychic abilities worth mentioning." The 4th member was Drakmor Eternal Emperor Vashatek, an ancient reptilian being whose scales had turned to living metal over his 3,000-year lifespan. His eyes glowed with inner fire as he examined the data. They reproduce quickly and spread across their planet like a plague. Typical primitive behavior. They will make adequate slaves once properly broken. The final council member was ethereal ascendant Nimara, a gaseous being whose form shifted constantly between states of matter. When she spoke, her voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Shall we send the standard subjugation fleet? 500 ships should be more than sufficient to demonstrate our divine authority." Morthak waved his energy hand dismissively. "Even 50 ships would be excessive for these creatures. However, protocol demands we make an example that other species will witness. Send 200 ships and broadcast our arrival across all known systems. Let the galaxy see what happens to those who dare travel among the stars without our permission." Meanwhile, in the outer regions of what humans call the Milky Way galaxy, Captain Li Dae-ho stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel Indomitable. The ship was humanity's pride, representing the best of their technology and determination. Li was a veteran of the recent Mars conflicts and had been selected to lead humanity's first deep space exploration mission. His crew of 43 included the finest scientists, engineers, and military personnel Earth could provide. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," reported Communications Officer Han Ye-rim. Her face had gone pale as she listened to something through her headphones. "It's not from Earth. The signal is coming from the direction of the galactic core." Lee felt his stomach tighten. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now it seemed they were about to get their answer. "Put it through the main speakers," he ordered, the bridge filled with a voice that seemed to come from a god speaking from the heavens. It spoke in perfect English, though somehow every crew member heard it in their native language simultaneously. "Primitive humans of the planet Earth, you have violated the sacred law of the Celestial Dominion by achieving interstellar travel without divine permission. Your species is hereby commanded to submit to the will of your gods." The transmission continued with details that made Lee's blood run cold. The aliens described themselves as the rightful rulers of all intelligent life in the galaxy. They had destroyed thousands of civilizations that dared to resist their authority. Humanity was being granted the honor of surrender to avoid immediate extinction. "Captain," whispered Navigator Kim Tae-wan, "long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures moving toward our solar system. Whatever these things are, they're big and they're coming fast. Lee stared at the tactical display showing hundreds of contacts approaching Earth. Each signature was larger than anything humanity had ever built. The lead ships would reach Earth in less than 2 weeks. "Set course for home immediately," he commanded. "Maximum speed!" The Indomitable raced back toward Earth while Lee composed the most important message in human history. When Earth Command received his transmission, the response was swift and decisive. Admiral Park G. Woo, the Supreme Commander of Earth's combined military forces, called an emergency session of the Global Defense Council. Admiral Park was a small woman in her 50s whose calm demeanor hid a brilliant tactical mind. She had earned her position through 3 decades of military service and was known for her ability to find solutions to impossible problems. As she read Captain Lee's report, her expression remained perfectly neutral. "How long do we have?" asked General Ryu Haijin, commander of the Terra Defense Force. 12 days, assuming their ships maintain current speed," Admiral Park replied. "Long-range telescopes confirm Captain Lee's report. We count over 200 vessels approaching our system. Each one is roughly the size of Manhattan. The Council..." Chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity possessed exactly 47 military vessels, most of which were converted civilian ships with basic weapon systems. Their largest warship carried a crew of 300 and was considered a marvel of engineering. They were about to face an enemy with technology that seemed almost magical. "What are our options?" asked Dr. Han Woo-seok, the head of Earth's Advanced Weapons Research Division. Admiral Park activated a holographic display showing the incoming alien fleet. "We have 3 choices. We can fight and be destroyed. We can run and be hunted down eventually. Or we can surrender and hope they honor their word about allowing us to live as slaves." "There has to be another option," General Ryu insisted. "Humanity didn't claw its way to the top of Earth's food chain by giving up when faced with superior predators." Admiral Park nodded slowly. "Actually, there might be a 4th option, but it would require us to do something that goes against every human instinct." She paused and looked around the table at Earth's military leadership. "We would have to appear weak when we are actually preparing for war. We would have to make them believe we are exactly what they think we are, a primitive, harmless species, unworthy of their attention." Dr. Han leaned forward with interest. "You're talking about intelligence gathering. Make them overconfident while we learn everything we can about their capabilities." "Precisely," Admiral Park confirmed. "We send them exactly what they expect to see. A tribute ship filled with representatives who appear to be simple, frightened primitives begging for mercy. While they're busy feeling superior, our people observe everything. Their technology, their tactics, their weaknesses." General Ryu frowned. "That's an enormous risk. If they see through the deception, they'll destroy Earth immediately." Admiral Park's expression hardened. "If we do nothing, they'll destroy Earth anyway. At least this way, we have a chance to learn something that might help us survive." She activated her communication system and contacted Captain Lee, whose ship was still racing toward home. "Captain, prepare your crew for the most important acting performance in human history. You're about to become our ambassadors to a group of beings who think they're gods." The cargo vessel, Peaceful Dawn, looked exactly like what the aliens expected to see from a primitive species. Captain Kim Tae-young had spent 3 days making sure every surface was slightly dirty and every system appeared to be barely functional. The ship's hull was painted in dull gray with visible repair patches that suggested poor manufacturing. Inside, the corridors were cramped and the lighting was deliberately dim to give the impression of an energy shortage. Kim stood in his cramped quarters reviewing the mission parameters one final time. He was a decorated naval officer who had served in submarine warfare before transitioning to space operations. His ability to remain calm under extreme pressure had made him the perfect choice for this assignment. The alien gods expected to meet terrified primitives begging for mercy, and Kim was prepared to give them exactly that performance. "Captain, we're approaching the alien fleet," announced Navigator Yoon So-ra from the bridge. Yoon was a former intelligence operative whose job was to memorize every detail of alien ship construction and tactical positioning. She wore the simple uniform of a cargo ship navigator, but hidden in her personal belongings were the most advanced recording devices humanity could produce. Kim made his way to the bridge and gasped at what he saw through the viewports. The alien Fleet stretched across space like a city floating in the void. The ships were massive beyond imagination, their hulls gleaming with energy that seemed to bend light around them. The smallest vessel was 10 times larger than Earth's biggest warship. "Incoming transmission," reported Communications Officer Park Min-soo. His official role was ship communications, but his real job was to analyze alien technology and communication methods. "They're ordering us to follow a specific approach vector." The peaceful dawn was guided through the alien formation like a minnow swimming among whales. Kim watched through the viewports as they passed ships that looked more like floating palaces than military vessels. Each one pulsed with power that humanity couldn't begin to understand. The aliens were not just technologically superior. They were operating on a completely different level of science. "Remember, we are simple cargo haulers who got lucky enough to be chosen as tribute bearers," Kim reminded his crew over the intercom. "We know nothing about military tactics or advanced technology. We are honored to be in the presence of the gods and grateful they are allowing us to live." Engineer Choi Min-ho was hunched over his instruments in the engine room, playing the role of a maintenance worker while secretly analyzing every energy reading his sensors could detect. Choi had 3 advanced degrees in theoretical physics, but he was dressed in dirty coveralls and speaking with the accent of someone who had never left his home province. His instruments were hidden inside what appeared to be basic repair tools. The peaceful dawn was directed to dock with the largest vessel in the fleet, a ship so massive it had its own atmosphere and gravity generators. As they approached, Kim could see structures on the hull that looked like cities with millions of inhabitants. This wasn't just a warship, it was a mobile world carrying an entire civilization. "Artificial gravity is taking effect," Yoon reported, as they passed through an energy barrier. The ship settled into a docking bay that could have held 100 vessels their size. Through the viewports, they could see aliens moving around the bay in environmental suits that seemed to be made of liquid metal. Dr. Bae Sung-min joined them on the bridge carrying a case of what appeared to be primitive Earth artifacts meant as gifts for the gods. In reality, the case contained the most sophisticated biological and technological analysis equipment Earth had ever produced, disguised as crude trinkets and artwork. Bae was humanity's leading expert on xenobiology, but he was playing the role of a simple scholar honored to meet superior beings. "Stay in character no matter what happens," Kim told his crew as they prepared to disembark. "These beings have ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They expect us to be in awe of their power, and we're going to give them exactly what they expect." The airlock opened, and Kim led his crew into the alien ship. The corridors were vast spaces with ceilings that disappeared into misty darkness above. The walls seemed to be made of living crystal that pulsed with inner light. The gravity was stronger than Earth normal, making each step feel heavy and deliberate. Their alien escorts were tall, graceful beings whose bodies seemed to shift between solid matter and pure energy. They communicated through musical tones that somehow translated directly into human understanding. The escorts showed obvious amusement at the primitive humans struggling to walk properly in the increased gravity. "The Supreme Council of Gods will grant you an audience," one escort announced in a voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "You are honored beyond measure to stand in their divine presence." Kim and his crew were led through corridors filled with artwork and technology that defied human understanding. Yoon memorized every detail she could see while maintaining the expression of someone overwhelmed by incomprehensible wonders. Choi's hidden sensors recorded energy readings that would keep Earth's scientists busy for decades. The throne room was a space so large it seemed to have its own weather patterns. Clouds drifted near the ceiling while streams of light flowed like rivers across the walls. At the center of the room stood 5 beings that radiated power like small suns. These were the gods that ruled the galaxy, and Kim had to fight every instinct that told him to run. Veltar Supreme Commander Morthak spoke first, his energy form brightening as he addressed the humans. "So, these are the creatures that dared to leave their world without permission. You are even more primitive than we expected." Kim dropped to his knees and gestured for his crew to do the same. "Great gods, we humble humans beg your forgiveness for our ignorance. We did not know of your divine authority over the stars. We offer ourselves as your servants and bring gifts to honor your greatness." The gods found this amusing. Kitharon, Prime Nexus. Zildok's mechanical voice buzzed with what might have been laughter. They grovel appropriately. Perhaps there is hope for their species after all. Dr. Bay opened his case and began presenting the gifts, each one designed to seem primitive and harmless while containing sophisticated monitoring equipment. As he spoke about each item, his hidden scanners analyzed the biological and technological signatures of each god. The information he was gathering would be crucial for understanding their weaknesses. Nexari Overmind. Kethral floated closer, its tentacles writhing as it attempted to read human thoughts. Kim had been trained in meditation techniques that would make his surface thoughts appear exactly as expected: fear, awe, and desperate hope for survival. Meanwhile, his deeper thoughts remained focused on memorizing everything he observed. Your minds are chaotic and undisciplined, the psychic being announced. You think like animals rather than intelligent beings. It will take considerable effort to train you properly. Drakmor Eternal Emperor Vashatek examined the humans with glowing eyes that seemed to see through flesh and bone. They are physically weak but appear to be adaptable. With proper breeding programs, we might create useful slave stocks from their genetic material. Ethereal Ascendant Nim Ara shifted between gaseous and liquid states as she spoke. Their technology shows promise despite its primitive nature. Given time and proper guidance, they might develop into competent technicians. The gods spent over an hour discussing humanity's fate while the humans knelt before them. Kim listened to every word while maintaining his pose of humble submission. The aliens spoke freely about their plans for Earth, apparently considering humans too primitive to understand the implications of what they were hearing. We will establish harvesting stations around your planet, Morthak explained to Kim. Your species will provide labor for mining operations and agricultural production. Those who prove useful will be allowed to live and reproduce under our supervision. You are most merciful, great gods, Kim replied with perfect sincerity. We are unworthy of such kindness. The audience concluded with the gods granting humanity 30 days to prepare for their arrival at Earth. The humans were dismissed like entertaining pets who had performed adequately for their masters. As they made their way back to their ship, Kim's crew maintained their roles perfectly while gathering every piece of information they could observe. Back aboard the Peaceful Dawn, the crew remained in character until they were well clear of the alien fleet. Only when they entered hyperspace toward Earth did Kim allow them to drop their masks. The transformation was immediate and dramatic as trained soldiers and scientists replaced the simple cargo haulers. Analysis report, Kim ordered as soon as they were secure. Yoon pulled out her hidden recording equipment and began downloading terabytes of tactical data. I counted 237 ships in 17 different configurations. Their formation shows clear command hierarchies and defensive patterns. They're overconfident, but not completely careless. Choi emerged from the engine room with energy readings that defied human understanding. Their power systems are beyond anything we've seen, but they follow consistent patterns. If we can understand the underlying principles, we might be able to develop countermeasures. Admiral Park Ji-woo stood in the center of Earth's most classified military facility, buried 3 kilometers beneath the Rocky Mountains. The chamber around her contained technology that officially did not exist and weapons that violated several interplanetary treaties humanity had never signed. For 30 years, Earth's greatest minds had been preparing for this exact moment, though they had never known what form the threat would take. The Peaceful Dawn had returned 18 hours ago, and its crew was still being debriefed by teams of specialists. The intelligence they had gathered was being analyzed by every major research facility on Earth and in the outer colonies. What they had learned was both terrifying and encouraging in ways no one had expected. Report, Dr. Han, Admiral Park commanded, as the head of weapons development approached her workstation. Dr. Han Woo-seok was a small man whose appearance suggested a quiet academic rather than the creator of humanity's most devastating weapons. He had spent 20 years developing countermeasures for threats that existed only in theoretical models. Now those theories were about to be tested against real enemies. The alien technology operates on principles we understand but have never been able to implement, Dr. Han explained as he activated a holographic display. They manipulate matter and energy at the quantum level using what appears to be controlled exotic matter reactions. The good news is that their science follows the same universal laws as ours. The bad news is that they are roughly 500 years ahead of us in practical application. General Ryu Hye-jin studied the technical readouts with the eye of someone who had spent her career turning scientific theory into practical weapons. Can we match their capabilities? Dr. Han smiled for the first time in weeks. Not match, no, but we can exceed them in ways they will never expect. Their technology is based on precision and control. Ours is based on controlled chaos and adaptive improvisation. They build tools that work perfectly under ideal conditions. We build weapons that work when everything goes wrong. Admiral Park nodded approvingly. Show her Project Prometheus. Dr. Han led them deeper into the facility through security checkpoints that required biometric scans, DNA verification, and psychological evaluation. The final door was made of materials that didn't exist in any public database and was protected by systems that could detect hostile intent at the subconscious level. Beyond, the door was a construction bay containing the largest spacecraft ever built by human hands. The ship was over 2 kilometers long and bristled with weapons systems that looked like they belonged in a nightmare rather than a machine shop. Its hull was made of adaptive metamaterials that could reconfigure themselves based on combat requirements. The Ragnarok, Dr. Han announced with obvious pride. Humanity's first god killer. General Ryu walked around the ship's landing supports, examining weapons systems that defied easy classification. What exactly does it do? Everything, Admiral Park replied. Dr. Han, explain the weapons systems. Dr. Han activated a control panel and the ship's hull began to shift and change like living tissue. The primary weapons are quantum disruptors that can unmake matter at the subatomic level. The secondary systems include reality anchors that prevent enemy ships from using dimensional manipulation for escape or defense. The tertiary weapons are consciousness bombs that attack the neural patterns of enemy crew members. Consciousness bombs? General Ryu asked with raised eyebrows. We learned something important from Dr. Bay's analysis of the alien gods, Dr. Han explained. Their advanced age and power has made them mentally rigid. They think in patterns that have remained unchanged for thousands of years. Our weapons are designed to introduce chaotic variables that their minds cannot process effectively. Admiral Park gestured toward a secondary bay where smaller ships were being prepared. The Ragnarok is just the centerpiece. We have built an entire fleet using technology that the aliens will not expect to encounter. The fleet was unlike anything in human military doctrine. Each ship was unique, designed around specific mission parameters rather than standardized production. Some were built for stealth and infiltration, others for direct assault, and still others for psychological warfare that would confuse and demoralize enemies who thought they understood human capabilities. How many ships? General Ryu asked. 73 combat vessels and over 200 support craft, Admiral Park replied. Each one equipped with weapons and defensive systems that operate outside conventional physics. We cannot match the aliens in raw power, but we can surprise them with capabilities they have never encountered. Dr. Han led them to another section where the most unusual preparations were taking place. Here, civilians were training alongside military personnel in exercises that looked more like guerrilla warfare than space combat. Men and women from every profession were learning to use weapons and tactics that would allow them to continue fighting even if Earth's conventional defenses failed. The alien gods expect to conquer a peaceful civilization, Admiral Park explained. They have no experience dealing with a species that treats war as a fundamental aspect of existence. Every human being on Earth and in the colonies has been trained in asymmetric combat techniques. A training exercise was in progress where office workers and teachers were practicing with weapons that could disable alien technology. The scene looked surreal, but the participants moved with the precision of professional soldiers. Humanity was revealing its true nature as a species that had evolved through constant warfare and competition. The aliens think we are primitive, because our technology appears crude compared to theirs, General Ryu observed. They do not understand that human technology is designed for different purposes. Exactly, Dr. Han confirmed. Their technology is built for control and precision. Ours is built for survival and adaptation. When their perfect systems encounter our chaotic responses, the results will be unpredictable in ways that favor us. Admiral Park received a communication from Captain O. Ji-hoon, the commander selected to pilot the Ragnarok. Captain O was a veteran of the asteroid wars who had earned his reputation by winning battles that should have been impossible. His psychological profile showed the perfect combination of tactical brilliance and controlled aggression needed for the mission ahead. "Admiral, the Ragnarok is ready for final systems testing," Captain O reported. "My crew has completed integration training with the exotic weapons systems. We are prepared to engage the enemy." "Understood, Captain. Begin preparations for deployment." "The alien fleet will arrive in 11 days. Admiral Park turned to address the assembled military leadership. "Gentlemen, humanity is about to reveal its true nature to the galaxy. For millions of years, we have been the apex predators of our world. We have survived ice ages, supervolcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and countless wars against our own species. We have reached the stars not because we are peaceful explorers, but because we are the most dangerous species our planet has ever produced." The final preparations began immediately. Hidden weapons platforms throughout the solar system came online, their existence unknown even to most of Earth's government. Quantum beacons that had been planted by the peaceful dawn activated throughout the alien fleet, providing targeting data for weapons that could strike across interstellar distances. Most importantly, the psychological profile of humanity that the aliens had developed was about to be revealed as completely false. The creatures they thought were primitive and weak were actually calculating predators who had spent decades preparing for exactly this confrontation. "The aliens call themselves gods," Admiral Park announced to her staff. "They have ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years without facing real opposition. They have become complacent and overconfident. Today, they are going to learn that gods can bleed and that humanity has been waiting our entire history for the chance to prove we belong at the top of the food chain." Captain O's voice came over the communication system from the Ragnarok's bridge. "Admiral, long-range sensors show the alien fleet dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of our solar system. They are broadcasting their arrival across all frequencies, apparently wanting to announce their victory to the entire galaxy." "Admiral Waugh." Park smiled with the expression of a hunter who had spent years preparing the perfect trap. "Let them come, Captain. Let them broadcast our response to the galaxy as well. Today, the age of gods ends and the age of humanity begins." The trap was set, the weapons were ready, and Earth's true nature was about to be revealed. The aliens expected to find terrified primitives begging for mercy. Instead, they were about to encounter the most dangerous predators the galaxy had ever seen, and humanity was ready to show them what real power looked like. The alien fleet emerged from hyperspace with the arrogance of beings who had never known defeat. 237 vessels arranged themselves in perfect formation around Earth's solar system, their hulls gleaming with power that could reduce planets to cosmic dust. At the center of the formation, the massive throne ship of the Celestial Dominion prepared to broadcast humanity's subjugation to the entire galaxy. Veltar, Supreme Commander Morthak, stood in his command chamber, his energy form pulsing with satisfaction as he observed the primitive blue world below. Earth looked exactly as expected. A single planet with basic orbital installations and a handful of crude spacecraft attempting to flee the system. The humans were behaving exactly as predicted, showing the cowardice typical of inferior species. When faced with divine authority, "Begin the demonstration," Morthak commanded his subordinates. "Destroy their moon to show them the futility of resistance. Then we will accept their surrender and begin the harvesting operations." The alien weapons charged with power that bent space around them. Energy levels that could crack continental plates focused on Earth's moon, preparing to demonstrate the price of defying the gods. The weapon systems locked onto their target and prepared to fire. Captain O. Ji-hoon watched the alien fleet from the bridge of the Ragnarok, his ship hidden in the shadow of an asteroid that had been hollowed out and converted into a weapons platform 30 years earlier. His crew of 200 was the finest humanity had ever assembled. Veterans of every conflict in human history, scientists who understood physics at levels that approached the supernatural, and engineers who could make impossible machines work under combat conditions. "Lieutenant Commander Lee So-young, status report," Captain O ordered his tactical officer. Lee So-young was a specialist in combat psychology who had spent her career studying how different species responded to warfare. Her analysis of the alien command structure had revealed critical weaknesses that could be exploited by someone who understood how overconfident minds reacted to unexpected challenges. "The alien gods are proceeding exactly as predicted," she reported. "They are so certain of their superiority that they have arranged their fleet in a ceremonial formation rather than a tactical one. Their flagship is positioned for maximum visibility rather than maximum protection." Chief Engineer Nam Dongwoo spoke from his position at the exotic weapons console. Nam had designed most of the reality warping systems that made the Ragnarok possible, turning theoretical physics into practical weapons that could challenge beings who thought they controlled the fundamental forces of the universe. "All weapons systems are charged and ready," Nam reported. "The quantum disruptors are operating at full efficiency. The reality anchors are prepared to lock enemy ships in normal space. The consciousness bombs are calibrated for the specific neural patterns we observed in the alien gods." Major Seo Jinwoo checked his equipment one final time as he prepared to lead the boarding parties that would assault the alien command ships. SEO was a veteran of urban warfare who had adapted human military tactics for combat in zero gravity and hostile environments. His troops were equipped with weapons designed specifically for fighting beings with advanced technology and superior physical capabilities. "Strike teams are ready, Captain," CO confirmed. "We have studied the interior layouts of their ships and identified the most efficient routes to their command centers. Once we breach their hulls, we can disable their primary systems within minutes." Captain O activated his communication system and opened a channel to Admiral Park on Earth. "Admiral, the Ragnarok is in position and ready to engage. All systems are functioning perfectly. The enemy fleet has arranged itself exactly as our intelligence predicted." Admiral Park's voice came through clearly despite the massive energy. "Interference, created by the alien weapons charging to destroy Earth's moon." "Understood, Captain. You are authorized to begin the operation. Show them what humanity is really capable of." Captain O turned to address his crew, his voice carrying the calm certainty of someone who had spent his entire career preparing for this moment. "For 10,000 years, these beings have ruled the galaxy through fear and intimidation. They have destroyed civilizations and enslaved entire species because no one has ever stood up to them. Today, that changes. Today, they learn that gods can bleed." The alien weapons reached full charge and prepared to fire on the moon. Morthak broadcast his message across all frequencies, ensuring that every species in the galaxy would witness humanity's destruction. "Behold, the fate of those who defy the celestial dominion. Let this serve as a lesson to any who would challenge divine authority." At that exact moment, the Ragnarok decloaked in the center of the alien formation. The human warship appeared like a nightmare made manifest, its adaptive hull shifting and changing as its weapon systems came online. The aliens had never seen technology that looked alive, armor that moved like muscle tissue, and weapons that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Captain O's voice cut through the alien communications with words that would be remembered throughout galactic history. "This is Captain O. Ji Hoon of the human warship Ragnarok. Gods bleed. Today you learn how." The first quantum disruptor fired before the aliens could react. The beam struck the nearest alien cruiser and began unmaking its hull at the subatomic level. The ship didn't explode or burn. It simply ceased to exist as its matter was converted back into component particles. The crew died before they could understand what was happening to them. Morthak's energy form blazed with rage and confusion. "How is this possible? Their technology is primitive. They cannot possess weapons capable of quantum manipulation." Lieutenant Commander Lee activated the psychological warfare systems, broadcasting images and sounds designed to trigger primal fear responses in species that had never experienced terror. The alien communications filled with confusion and panic as their crews struggled to understand weapons that operated outside their comprehension. "The human ship appears to be using impossible technology," reported Kitharon Prime Nexus Zildok from the tactical station. "Their weapons are attacking matter at the quantum level while simultaneously manipulating space-time to prevent our defensive systems from functioning." Chief Engineer Nam fired the reality anchors, locking the alien fleet in normal space and preventing them from retreating through dimensional manipulation. The gods, who had always been able to escape from losing battles, suddenly found themselves trapped in a combat zone with an enemy they did not understand. The second quantum disruptor fired, and another alien ship simply stopped existing. The third shot targeted the power core of a command vessel, causing a chain reaction that destroyed 3 more ships in a cascade of exotic matter explosions. Nexari overmind Kethrol attempted to use its psychic abilities to disable the human crew, but its mental attacks encountered minds trained in meditation techniques that turned psychic assault into focused rage. The humans' thoughts became weapons that burned through the aliens' consciousness, like acid. "Their minds are chaos!" the psychic being screamed through the communication system. "They think like predators and feel no fear. How can a primitive species possess such mental discipline?" Major CO's boarding parties launched from hidden bays throughout the asteroid field, their assault shuttles invisible to alien sensors until they were already latching onto enemy hulls. The human soldiers cut through advanced alien armor with weapons that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, allowing them to bypass shields and defensive systems that should have been impenetrable. Drakmor Eternal Emperor Vashtek fired his flagship's main weapons at the Ragnarok, energy beams that could destroy planets focusing on the human ship. The beams struck the adaptive armor and were absorbed, converted, and redirected back at the alien fleet with twice their original power. "Impossible!" Vashtek roared as his own weapons destroyed 2 of his escort vessels. "They are using our power against us!" Captain O's voice filled the communications again as more alien ships died around them. "You ruled through fear because you had never faced anyone who fought back. You called yourselves gods because you had never met devils. Welcome to humanity." The consciousness bombs detonated throughout the alien fleet, attacking the neural patterns of crews who had lived for thousands of years without experiencing real combat stress. The alien gods found their ancient minds unable to process the reality of defeat, their thoughts becoming trapped in recursive loops of disbelief and terror. Ethereal Ascendant Nim'ara tried to phase her ship out of normal matter to escape the battle, but the reality anchors held her in physical form, while quantum disruptors tore through her vessel like it was made of paper. The gaseous being's screams echoed across all frequencies as she experienced mortality for the first time in millennia. "This cannot be happening," Morthak broadcast to the entire galaxy, his energy form flickering with panic. "We are gods. We are eternal. How can primitive creatures possess such power?" Captain O answered with another quantum disruptor blast that removed Morthak's flagship from existence, leaving only empty space where a ship the size of a city had existed moments before. The news of the Celestial Dominion's defeat spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. On thousands of worlds that had lived under the rule of the gods for millennia, oppressed species watched the recordings of the battle with expressions of disbelief that slowly transformed into hope. The impossible had happened. Someone had stood up to the gods and won. Admiral Park Ji-woo stood in the newly constructed command center overlooking Earth's capital city. Through the massive windows, she could see representatives from over 300 different species arriving for the first Galactic Liberation Council meeting. Ships of every conceivable design filled the orbital stations that had been hastily expanded to accommodate the flood of visitors seeking humanity's protection and guidance. "Admiral, the Kethmiran delegation has arrived," announced Captain Lim Jae-sung, who had been promoted to head of the new Galactic Patrol. Lim was a diplomatic officer who had spent his career learning to work with different cultures and species. His calm demeanor and natural ability to find common ground made him perfect for building relationships with former slaves of the Celestial Dominion. The Kethmirans were a proud warrior species that had been crushed by the gods over 2,000 years ago. Their delegation was led by War Chief Groktar, a massive reptilian being whose people had never stopped planning for the day they might regain their freedom. The warrior's eyes showed both gratitude and calculation as he studied the humans who had accomplished what his species had never managed. "Humans of Earth," Groktar spoke in heavily accented Galactic Standard, "my people offer our fleets in service to your cause. We have dreamed of revenge against the gods for 40 generations. You have given us what we could never achieve ourselves." Admiral Park nodded respectfully, but raised her hand to forestall any oaths of allegiance. "War Chief, Humanity did not fight the Celestial Dominion to replace them as galactic rulers. We fought them because freedom is the right of every intelligent species. Your people are not our subjects. They are our allies in building something better than what came before. Ambassador Ko Hyrin stepped forward to handle the formal diplomatic protocols. Ko was a career diplomat who had spent years preparing for humanity's eventual contact with alien civilizations. Her background in international relations and conflict resolution made her the perfect choice for navigating the complex politics of galactic reconstruction. The Terran Federation is founded on principles of voluntary cooperation and mutual respect, Ambassador Ko explained to the assembled delegations. We invite all species to join us as equals in creating a galaxy where no one rules through fear or claims divine authority over others. Dr. Song Min-ji was busy in the integration centers that had been established to help former slave species adapt to freedom. Song was a psychologist who specialized in trauma recovery and social rehabilitation. Many of the liberated species had lived under oppression for so long that they had forgotten how to make independent decisions or govern themselves effectively. The hardest part is not the technology or the politics, Dr. Song explained to her staff as they reviewed case files from dozens of different species. It's helping people remember what it means to be free. Some of these civilizations have been slaves for longer than humanity has existed as a species. The integration process was complex and often heartbreaking. Species that had been bred for specific functions struggled to develop broader skills and interests. Cultures that had been suppressed for millennia had to rediscover their own traditions and values. Some species had been genetically modified by the gods to be more compliant, requiring medical intervention to restore their original characteristics. Captain O.G. Hoon had become something of a legend throughout the galaxy, his name spoken with reverence by liberated species and fear by those who still harbored thoughts of oppression. The Ragnarok had been joined by an entire fleet of human vessels, each one equipped with the reality-warping technology that had proven so effective against the gods. Captain, we're receiving reports of isolated Dominion loyalist groups attempting to maintain control in the Outer Rim territories, reported his new tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Park Soo-jin. Park was a specialist in counterinsurgency operations who had volunteered for deep space assignments to help liberate the remaining Dominion strongholds. Understood, Captain O replied as he studied the tactical displays showing trouble spots throughout the galaxy. Prepare the fleet for deployment. It seems some beings still need to learn that the age of gods is over. The liberation campaigns were surgical strikes that demonstrated humanity's commitment to galactic freedom. Human ships appeared wherever Dominion loyalists tried to maintain their oppression, offering the former slaves a choice. Join the Terran Federation as free beings or continue to live under the rule of those who claimed divine authority. Most chose freedom, but the transition was not always smooth. Some species had become so dependent on their oppressors that they struggled to function independently. Others had developed cultures based entirely around serving the gods and needed to completely reinvent their social structures. Admiral Park found herself dealing with challenges she had never anticipated. Leading a galactic confederation was vastly different from commanding Earth's military forces. Every decision had to account for the needs and perspectives of hundreds of different species, each with their own biology, psychology, and cultural values. The Zenthari delegation is requesting permission to execute all former Dominion administrators on their homeworld, reported Ambassador Ko during their daily briefing. They claim it is necessary for justice and to prevent counter-revolution. Admiral Park sighed as she considered the complexities of galactic justice. What does Dr. Song's psychological assessment say about the Zenthari leadership? They show significant trauma responses and displacement aggression, Dr. Song replied from her position at the conference table. The desire for revenge is understandable, but mass executions would likely destabilize their society further and create cycles of violence that could last for generations. Recommend that they establish truth and reconciliation commissions instead, Admiral Park decided. Justice is important, but building stable societies is more important than revenge. Captain Lim, assign a mediation team to help them develop appropriate legal frameworks. Captain Lim nodded and made notes in his personal datapad. The Galactic Patrol had evolved from a military force into something closer to a combination of peacekeepers, mediators, and emergency responders. Their primary mission was helping liberated species develop sustainable governments and resolve conflicts without resorting to warfare. The most challenging cases involved species that had been modified by the gods for specific purposes. The Telkari had been genetically altered to serve as living computers, their brains enhanced for data processing, but their emotional development stunted. The Mordani had been bred as living weapons, their bodies optimized for combat, but their minds programmed for absolute obedience. "We're making progress with the Telkari rehabilitation program," Dr. Song reported. "Teaching them to experience emotions is difficult, but they're showing remarkable adaptation. Several have expressed interest in careers beyond data processing." "What about the Mordani?" Admiral Park asked. "More challenging. Their combat programming runs deeper than we initially realized. We're working with their traditional leaders to develop cultural frameworks that honor their warrior heritage while channeling their aggression toward constructive purposes." The work was slow but rewarding. Species that had been enslaved for millennia were rediscovering their potential and developing new relationships with their neighbors. Trade networks began forming based on mutual benefit rather than dominion resource extraction. Cultural exchanges flourished as different species shared art, music, and philosophy that had been suppressed under divine rule. However, not all challenges came from former slaves. New threats were beginning to emerge from outside the galaxy, drawn by the power vacuum left by the Dominion's collapse. Long-range sensors detected massive objects approaching from intergalactic space, their energy signatures unlike anything in the galactic database. "Admiral, we're receiving signals from the Andromeda Galaxy," reported the communications officer during an emergency briefing. "The transmissions are in mathematical languages we don't recognize, but the tone suggests they are not friendly. Admiral." Park studied the sensor readings with growing concern. The approaching objects were larger than anything the Celestial Dominion had ever built, and they were moving faster than should be physically possible. Whatever was coming, it made the fallen gods look like children playing with toys. "It seems our victory over the Dominion has attracted attention from beyond our galaxy," she observed grimly. "Captain O, prepare the fleet for potential contact with unknown entities. Captain Lim, begin organizing joint defense planning with our allied species." As Admiral Park looked out at the bustling orbital stations filled with representatives from hundreds of free worlds, she felt both pride and apprehension. Humanity had successfully liberated the galaxy from 10,000 years of oppression and helped dozens of species rediscover their independence and dignity. But the galaxy was vast and full of unknowns.